Ring, ring.
The telephone is ringing. Is that my mother on the phone?
Yes, that's a good way to. That is the best answer to my calls I've ever
Good.
gotten.
Good.
Hello, this must be the indomitable Britta Pejic of Boston, Massachusetts on the phone.
Hi, from the hub in
Hi.
Beantown. Hello.
I'm calling Britta today in Boston to install her as a sympathetic string on the Lipstick Pickup podcast.
What an honor. What an honor. Thank you, Emily.
It is my honor to have you on the podcast.
This is great. This is great.
I'm going to tell the listeners that Britta and I think it's about a month that we've been connected through Instagram. We've never met in person, but sometimes you feel like you know somebody when you know people in common, and a handful of those people are a beloved, iconic band with a following in Boston and New York and everywhere else called the Figs.
The Figs.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And I have to spell it with my southern accent because sometimes it sounds like the Fix, Fixx. We are talking, I like to spell things because I'm into my audio. This is my oral history, and I like to spell things. We are talking about the band, the Figs, Figgs.
Two G's. Yes, yes, yes.
They're legends.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I met them a long time ago in the early 90s when I used to live in Northampton. And they were playing, I can't remember what the name of the club was, maybe Pearl Street, maybe the Bay State. These are early, kind of venues. And there was a big music scene down over there. Jay Mascis was there, Sebadoh, and David Berman were all part of that community. So there were... there were some pretty interesting, colorful characters in the early 90s. And then a friend of mine and my friend wanted to start a zine and he wanted to interview the Figs. And so we were invited down to stay with them. We saw them and play a Halloween show. And then we stayed with them and stayed up all night and talked about records and music and watched some rare videos that, before YouTube, they had like a nice collection of, oh, you gotta see this. Or another thing I remember they had was, had you ever heard of it was a Wings concert, and one of the sound engineers isolated Linda McCartney's backing vocals, and she's singing Hey Jude, and it's just like, what is this? And so they had that, and Mike, and now it's everywhere. Now it's all over, but Mike Gent recorded a copy, and I had it, on a compilation, the beginning of side 2 of a compilation. It was just like, and it would kick in like, oh my gosh, what are we listening to? But it was good for a laugh. It was a great laugh, like when things like that were real rare. So,
that's one thing I love about the Figs. The individuals, I love them all. I met them similarly. This is really ironic, but the first time I saw them, it was on a Halloween night.
Really?
Yes, at a club called The Point in Atlanta, which was a legendary garage punk place, and they were not necessarily sharing a bill with Graham Parker, but they were playing, it was like an early show and a late show, and that's how they got connected with Graham Parker.
Okay, yeah, they were touring with him for a long time.
They met him in Atlanta.
That was where it started.
I was there.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's great.
And it was and then I was a big Graham Parker fan, so when the Figs started playing in Atlanta, I went to go see him because I was like, if this is Graham Parker's backing band, I need to see the Figs, Yeah. And I went to see him, and that's how I met all those guys.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So they introduced us in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
Maybe Pete Donnelly. Maybe, I don't know how we found each other on Instagram, but it might have been something about Pete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know it was Pete Hayes. You recently interviewed Pete Hayes.
We recorded a podcast in the spring. It was Record Store Day.
Oh.
And because he's a drummer.
You know who started Record Store Day?
Who?
His name was Chris Brown up in Portland, Maine. I believe that was him that started Record Store Day. I could be wrong, but I feel like...
Yeah, it's an interesting institution.
Yeah.
So Pete, because he's a drummer, we decided, kind of like you and I have talked about what we would like to talk about today. Pete and I decided, hey, it's record store day. Let's talk about records we like. And so
Oh,
he and I recorded a record store day podcast.
a record
I
store.
was just getting my feet wet,
Oh, that's
so
great, though. That's great. What a great
we did.
occasion, too, because record stores, I mean, that's where you meet people and listen to records and, I don't know, and go on treasure hunts and, oh, I got
The
this
thing
moment.
about you and bands like the Figs is good taste in music. Not everybody who plays music is real adventurous about what they listen to. This is a phenomenon that I've experienced here in Nashville, where you have a lot of talented people. But talented doesn't mean you always have hundreds, thousands of records and you know them. So there's a lot of people in music who sometimes like to not listen to as much music. But, it's kind of an interesting thing. But the Figs are a big fan, and you were obviously somebody who was a big fan of music, knowledgeable. When we got connected, we started exchanging missives about this, that, and for the listener, when the way she answered the phone, she answered the phone. Tell our listeners how you answered the phone. Explain it.
So, what? I don't know. I've been on a police kick lately, and you were talking about Andy Summers using that. What's the name of that particular sitar that he used on
I
Synchronicity?
think that would have been so. Whenever they record it, what the only thing that would have been out there would have been a choral
Okay.
electric sitar, and I have I shot you a picture of him holding it.
Right,
So
right.
that would be a choral electric sitar. So
And I think that's what I played on BSG, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean,
yeah.
you could tell me. But anyway, yeah, he plays sitar on "I'll Be Wrapped Around Your Finger," and then you said "and Mother" too. And like, okay, and I had to go back and listen to "Mother," and that's why it's fresh in my brain. And it's funny because just as we were taking a break, guess who called me, and I had to hang up.
Your mother,
Yes. So,
Andy Summers.
well, that would have been interesting. I would have answered, but it's my mom. Poor mom. Love my mom. Love my mom. But I'll call her back.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah. So I love having a listening task.
Yeah.
You heard a song 1,000 times, and that's not a song that I've heard 1,000 times. But my son said something interesting, like a song that you've heard so many times, it's almost like a chewed piece of gum. And like if you'd listen to like a classic rock station, you got to give yourself tasks to sit through these songs now. Like I'm going to listen to the drums. I'm going to listen to who's trying to pick apart vocalists like in this song. Like, oh, I can hear that that's John Entwistle singing the highest part and Roger's the lowest. I love trying to pick apart, listening for things. It's a listening activity.
Listening with a purpose.
Listening with a purpose, or like, yeah. You do that when
They're mindfulness exercises. You know how people talk about mindfulness
oh
exercises
yeah,
now?
yeah, yeah.
And I appreciate you letting me talk to you about electric sitar because you know a lot about music. And I told you about how, hey, I found it on all this stuff and I had to go listen for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you
Having
had to go listen
a
for it.
listening task.
And so we started talking about the police, and you love the police like I do. And going to, how many times you heard wrapped around your finger?
Yeah. And then now you go and listen again, like, oh, that was really cool. It has a
What?
different feel to it now. It's a different pallor. It's wonderful. It's
There was a
wonderful.
reason to listen to it in a different way,
Yeah. We do that in foreign language classes. Like, okay, listen for the hard C. I'm actually taking an Italian class now. So I get a free class because I teach French. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to take Italian. I don't speak Italian, but yesterday we had to listen for hard G or soft G or hard C or hard soft G. But anyway, same idea.
It's the same.
If you predispose your brain to like it lights, I think neurons are definitely lighting up is what
Yeah.
listening to a piece of gum.
I want to ask you about all of that, but first I want to do a more solid job to explain to people that I met Britta online a month ago, but we've been talking about guitars, and she really knows her stuff, and she's got a band that I'm going to ask her about her band called RiFFiNDoTs.
Well, I'm
And I, Oh, well,
I'm
it
Riffy.
is. It's an yeah. It's a moniker. Artists that have a name, but then they work with other
Yeah.
people. I'm going to get you to explain it all to me, but Britta knows a lot about a lot of things, and we're going to talk about music in a little bit. But I want to hear about Britta. Because Britta and I have been bumping gums for over an hour before we hit record, but I still don't know too much about her. And now I want to find out about Britta.
Who is
Who is
who
Britta?
is Britta Pejic?
Besides having a beautiful name. Okay, Portland, Maine. You were born and raised there?
I was born in Boston, and then I grew up in Portland, Maine. I've been playing guitar since I was 10, so that was over 40 years ago. Why did I start playing guitar? The Who. I was huge Who fan, big Pete fan. I still drive people crazy when I bring up the Who. Not to bring up the Who again,
Who?
but they're like my squeaky toy, like a dog with a squeaky toy. Like what is? I hear a Who song over the crowd. What is what? I know.
Townsend.
Yeah, I like the guy. I really do. And so yeah, my first guitar. Oh, this is interesting, and it's in the other room, but it's beat to shit. My first guitar was a Teisco Del Rey.
Yeah.
I got it for
Yeah.
$10 at a garage sale that was called the world's largest garage sale in Portland, Maine. It was a television promotion thing because my dad was with the television station up there, and basically it was a concert venue arena, the Cumberland County Civic Center, and they'd have the whole place was a giant garage sale, but it was to raise money for certain charities. But I went in there like, there's an electric guitar, and I
And you
wanted
were 10?
guitar so bad. Yes, I
Yeah.
was 10, and I mean I think I had one giant beefy pickup. I loved playing with it, and I couldn't play, and it's so frustrating when you can't play, but I did other things with it, like I want to make a bass. I made a bass. I took bass strings and I put bass strings on it and made a bass. And I had to take a wood block though so that the strings weren't up against the fret. I had a basement and I could just do stuff in my basement.
Did you have siblings growing up?
Yes, I have a younger brother, and he's in Austin, and he's a musician too, and he and I could talk forever about music and give each other musical tasks and puns, and that's a lot of fun. So
Was he involved in this with this thing you were breaking down? Was he a tinker? You sound like a tinker when you talk.
a tinker, and he's about 6.5 years younger, so he was
Oh, yeah.
when this all went down. But yeah, I would try to record things. Like I had a stereo that you could plug in the headphones into the mic jack, and I would talk into that. And then I ultimately put the headphones around a little acoustic guitar I had to make an electric guitar. And then I record my own version of like Eminence Front with my friend, and then you hear my mom at the top of the dinner.
It's a put on. Okay, let's defend the song. Let's defend the song "Eminence Front" right now.
Does it get a lot of bad rep? Does it get a
It
lot?
does. People like to rip on that song. Everything Pete Townsend did is genius.
I like Eminence Front.
I love Eminence Front. We are contemporaries. You're a bit younger than me, but I remember Eminence Front. I remember the video.
Yes, it was like a live performance. They're playing it live somewhere. Around the time they stopped touring, or they were going to do their final tour, like '82. I think that's.
Yeah, they show up in a limo.
Oh yeah.
And they got shoulder pads.
Oh,
they
it's
got
so hard. Headbands and shoulder pads and gray leather.
It holds up though. If you go look at the video, it holds up.
Yeah.
Eminence Front. I love that you're a Pete Townsend. I've had so many, not to get into genders, but I've had so many men tell me, Pete Townsend's my guy. He's the reason why I did it. And I love hearing from a lady saying, Pete Townsend's my guy. He's the reason why I did it.
Well, he also, I think he says, he's got his male fans, but he says his female fans are crazy. Like, well, yeah. And so, I don't know.
Diagnosed.
Done and dusted. So.
I'm sick.
Yeah.
Okay. So you grew up in Portland. Yeah, well, or you moved back and your dad was, did you say he was in the news business?
So, yes, my family was in the television business up in Portland, Maine. This is another book that my dad wrote. We have dads that are authors.
Yeah, daddy issues. We're going to call this episode Daddy Issues. Just
So,
kidding.
it's like, so anyway, my great grandfather had a hotel, built a hotel up in Portland, Maine. It's called the Eastland Hotel. The family sold the hotel, I think, in the 50s. But to promote the hotel, they had somebody came in and said, "You need radios in all of your hotel rooms." And said, "Okay." And so that became the radio station. And it was the call letters are WCSH. It's still a station today up in Portland, Maine. It's an NBC affiliate. And the call letters stand for Congress Square Hotel. There were actually two hotels next to each other. And the Congress Square Hotel was where the radios started. The radio station started.
This
So,
is
yeah.
fascinating to
And then
me.
so then they would broadcast on the top of the hotel. They'd have like it was a radio broadcast. It was very interesting. And so that's all in the book history.
What type of music was that? Would it have been just popular music of the
Probably
day?
popular music. This was like 1920s.
Okay, and tell me the name of this book that you told me about.
The history, the book that my dad, one of the books, it was called The History of Broadcasting in Maine.
Oh.
And it's not like a hugely, it's not St. Martin's Press. It was definitely, he has his own publishing company called Congress Square Press.
This is so fascinating to me.
But so then anyway, and then television came onto the scene and it became a television station. That was, I think, gosh, when did television come in? It was like 50s, I'd say.
Yeah.
And so I should know this.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in a television station family. And I don't know if you ever watched the show SCTV. It was just like living in SCTV, like all these, sometimes newscasters would come over to dinner for parties. But here's a funny story. The newscaster, the sportscaster, and I'm horrified that I'm going to tell this story, but it's fine.
I'm not.
So anyway, he was a good friend of my dad's. He'd go jogging with him. But he called the house once, and he called the house. This was when I was a kid, and my brother was even younger. And so my brother answers the phone, farts into the phone, and then hands it to my father. It was the newscast. It was the sportscasters. Anyway, every time I thought of this sportscaster, I'd think of that story.
Your family sounds like they have a lot of fun around the house.
Well, yes. I mean, what was really cool, early television, you could do crazy things like Ernie Kovacs kind of stuff. And there was this cameraman who was a good friend of my dad's. He was kind of my dad's mentor when my dad was younger. And eventually my dad went on to become president of the station, but he started off as a cameraman. You work your way up. And this guy, his name was Dave Surrett, and he would film, do the news. The newscaster all of a sudden started like coughing and he needed to leave the set to go and get a drink of water. There was a water fountain behind the set. And so the cameraman followed him to the bubbler, or the bubbla as they say up here in Boston, the water fountain, and he just, bent over, had the camera in his face while he's getting a drink of water, and it was live on live television.
Yeah, live
You could do
TV.
stuff like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting progression, and I love hearing that you were around broadcasting because all of this goes hand in hand with the Dan Electro story. They started in the amplification business, just like Fender. They didn't start making guitars; they were making amplified things. They were solving problems, mid-century innovation. And then they start getting into the guitar business, but radio and television, they all go together with this story.
Yeah, it's
so fascinating. I knew that we would have a great talk, and this is fascinating stuff.
Yeah. So
is your father still with us?
Yes, he is. And here's his latest book. It's about this artist named Mary Neal Richardson. Is that backwards? I can't tell.
It looks great from here.
Okay,
yeah.
It's backwards on my screen. So this was a friend of the family, and beautiful portrait artist. My parents have this painting at their house. I wrote a song about it because at nighttime it's lit up and it's terrifying. And when 3 a.m, mind, I have to get up and go. I run past this painting
Yeah.
because she's lit up from the outside, and it's huge. It's a big painting. But anyway, this is look the painting of the painting in the painting. There's that very painting in her studio. This is Mary Neal Richardson, and she actually, I think, had some kind of a crazy feather hat that she painted over eventually. And she painted it over the background. You can see on the painting at home at my parents' house. There's like,
Is that the reason why your father wanted to do this book? He's obviously a very accomplished person, but does he consider himself a writer now, or
he just has a curiosity that's unbelievable. It just, and wonder, curiosity, but determination at the same time.
Yeah.
He's the guy that says to my brother, Alex, I'm going to lower this rope down the side of the house. You're going to tie it to the snowblower. And then he would hoist it up onto the roof so he could snowblow the roof. I mean, it's just it's crazy, but I know what I'm doing, and we're going to do this. So anyway, he
all
does,
things are possible.
absolutely. Everything is possible. And that's going to come up again. Remember that.
I love this. Does he live? Where are your
He's
folks?
up in Portland. They're all up in Portland still. So we go see them regularly. Both my parents are still alive. And my mom is where the music comes from. Not my dad. No, he likes music. He and I share a common interest in Richard Thompson. We both love Richard Thompson. Because my maiden name is Richard Thompson. My maiden name is Thompson, so maybe that's why he's a Richard Thompson fan. Anyway,
he's a generation person that brings people together, young and old, Richard Thompson.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, he had a songwriting camp in the Catskills a couple summers ago. And he gives workshops. It's like summer camp for people who want to write music. And a lot of really interesting people. Sloan Wainwright,
They're all interesting.
Wainwright's sister. She's wonderful. She gives voice lessons, and she was doing that to Happy Traum, who actually just passed away. Some really, really kind of really wonderful musicians and up-and-coming musicians, too, were there. Oh, and Jill Sobule was one of the camp leaders in songwriting, so camp leaders.
And
but
now, was this in Boston or Portland?
This was in the Catskills.
Oh, Catskills, yeah.
Yeah.
We have songwriting programs like that here in Nashville, and I had a lady show up to my house who was attending one, and she had a Richard Thompson hat on. And I said, there you go. I'm a huge fan. Go way back. I've seen a bunch live over the years, by the way, and Fairport Convention, he's been around for forever. And if you don't like that era of Richard Thompson, it's fine. We've got another one right over here. It's like, he's a monster talent. Yeah. And anyway, what an incredible experience that must have been.
Yeah. It was fun.
So you attended this?
It was. They do it every year. And this was 2 summers ago I went. And it's a week-long, summer camp, where you go and learn to write songs, and people give workshops. There was a guy named Zach Hobbs. Actually, he's Richard Thompson's grandson. I think he's the grandson. And he's a monster guitar player, and he was teaching a workshop of hybrid picking, which is, flat pick, and then you do things with these, which is, that's this. But he's really talented, and I think he went on tour with Rufus Wainwright as his guitar player, so he's very talented, really talented kid. So,
wow,
it was kind of fun, crazy group of people. But I'm toying with the idea of going back. But it's they have these music camps out at the same resort. Like they had, I think, Tony Levin, Adrian Belew, and then somebody else. They were doing that kind of. Then they'd have the band theme camp, the band. So, and on the way to when I went to I think it's the Full Moon Resort in the Catskills, I found Big Pink. I drove by it. And
I haven't seen it. I would love to see it.
I drove near it. There was a big no trespassing sign. I didn't want somebody to come out with a shotgun, but I understand that it's on VRBO. You can rent rent Big Pig, but you can't go in the basement. So that's kind of a bummer. That's
Who needs it?
But
I want to go to the Catskills. I don't know how to write a song, but I sure would love to sit there and watch.
Yeah. Well, you should do this.
We're going to meet because I'm long overdue a trip to Boston. I love Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna meet. So I want to ask you a rapid fire more questions about
Okay.
Britta.
Rapid fire.
So you have a family and you're a mom. Tell me
Mhm.
about your children.
I
Children.
have two children. One is in college. He just started this year. And another, she's 13. And yeah, both of them very wonderful kids. We lived abroad for 6 years over in the Basque country in France. And so both the kids are bilingual. And one of them is now she's in a school where other kids speak more than two languages. So she's really she does Duolingo German every day, and she's studying Serbian so she can speak Serbian with her grandfather. So
Amazing.
I know, and their French is absolutely beautiful. I mean, she can split down the middle, bilingual. When she hears me speak French, she cringes. But
And you are a French teacher yourself,
yes,
correct?
yes, yes.
Is that how did you and your family end up living in Basque Country? How did that happen?
Family over
Okay.
there. So, their dad is French, and his folks would summer there, and actually it became a year-round kind of place. But this was a town called the town we lived on was called Hyundai, and that is like next to Spain. We would go to Spain to buy groceries. We would go to Spain to buy gas. We were in Spain, like that was our backyard. We could see Spain from our balcony, and we go over
Fascinating.
there all the time. But it's funny because when I come back here to visit, people say, "How's France?" Like it was Basque country. It's
Yeah,
Basque.
it's not the same.
So
You told me that the Basque language is complicated. Is it a weird type of French or is it a weird type of Spanish?
no, neither. It is non-Indo-European. No, maybe some words have kind of seeped in, but otherwise it's very, very complicated. And I took a Basque class for about a year. It was fun. I love language classes, but it was just like, it was really, really hard. No words are transparent. Like, obviously, this was what this means. No, no. And yeah, I used to listen to the Basque radio station, which was great. If you ever are looking for like an eclectic mix of music, this was a station called ETB. It's out of Bilbao, Spain. EITB. And every hour they'd say the time, and I knew how to say the time. Go Seiko Amaikatira. And then they play like their little interstitial. And then every two or three songs was a Basque song, like shepherds in the mountains singing, and then they'd play the theme to Welcome Back, Cotter. I mean, it was just like, or Salisbury Hill or something from Tame Impala. It was just like, it was all over the place, but it was like always a great surprise. It's such a fun radio station to listen to.
Here's my next question for you as a guitar player and a musician. Do you play all instruments? Or are you one of those people who can play anything?
I picked up
You,
piano kind of in the last year or so. I should have picked it up a long time ago, but my daughter's taking lessons, and then I started taking lessons from her teacher, and she's a real character. I think she told me she's related to Gertrude Stein.
oh, that's
And
great.
I loved talking to her more than sitting at the piano, and because I really have a hard time with notes. I mean, it feels like my brain goes through a juicer. I just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, what's that? I just I didn't learn it early enough. I don't read music. I tried to learn.
I'm impressed by you telling me that. The question I had is what, as a guitar player or a musician, what was it like for you living in Basque Country? Was there a guitar shop there? Did you buy any guitars there? Was there any live music to speak of or
Okay, yeah,
around?
yes. So I did buy a guitar over there. Actually, it's right here. This is my acoustic, and I love it. And it has a nice smell too. It really does.
Oh, Britta, before we hit record, Britta shares my enthusiasm for smelling guitars. Some of them are old and they have their own smell, and I do like to smell them. And take a whiff of this one, Britta, and tell me how it smells. What does it
It
smell like?
smells like, so my parents have a drawer like it's lined with velvet, and it has like silver in the drawer, like pieces of silver that haven't been polished, and it might have like a silver polish smell to it, but anyway, this is a Gibson J15, and it really does smell good. It does. I've actually had guitars also that smell bad. Like one of my first guitars was a Fender Bronco, one pickup. I still have it. It's in bad shape. The
I've
glue,
never even. I've never even heard of this model, the Bronco. I've got to Google that. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The glue they used in those cases was horse glue. So it smells like horse shit. It really does. And actually, I had a bass that had the same thing. The case was used, they used horse glue. It smelled so bad. It really does. So make sure your guitar smells lovely.
Hey, give it a strum. I don't know if you... Sounds good.
Picker.
Chime school. I love it. So you bought that one when you were living in
a town called Bayonne, not New Jersey, Bayonne, France. It's a beautiful kind of old medieval town, more populated than where we were. So that was the closest guitar shop. It was a place called Fuzz. Nice guy that worked there. Actually lived in Boston, and one of the few people I knew that spoke English over there. Nobody spoke English, just Spanish, French, and Basque. I did play in a trio. We did like 3-part harmony, and we did a lot of covers, and that was fun. We played a quick one by The Who. That was really interesting. And these two other women that I sang with, one was French, one was Czech. They didn't speak English, but they did a great job learning the song. A lot of people will sing songs over there, and they don't know what the meaning is, and I even had them sing a song from Fire Sign Theater, Firebiter, and they learned it, but they had no idea what they were singing was awesome. So that's on YouTube.
Is there any proof of this on the internet anywhere?
Yes, on YouTube. We're singing a Porgy Tirebiter. Probably my most viewed YouTube video.
Okay, I'm all over that. Listeners, go to YouTube. How do I find it? Tell me how to find it. Tell us how to find it.
The
Is
name
it under a handle of yours?
No, it might be. I don't know. Just look up Porgy Tirebiter, and then I think Trio, Trio, Blay, BLE, because that was our initials. So we sang regularly, and then things kind of fizzled after a while. But then also, I was recording music alone on my GarageBand on my iPad, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I really would love to find a sound engineer. I'd really love to have somebody come and help clean this up and get it recorded. I mean, what am I going to do? And then I went out one night to like this open mic at a beach bar, and there was another bunch of musicians there, and then I said, what do you play? Piano. And then this guy says, yeah, I play piano, and I'm a sound engineer. You're a sound engineer? And it turned out he was my neighbor. He lived right across the street from me. So that was when I met Lol. Lol is the sound engineer. He goes by the name Lol. His real name is Laurent, but Laurent is hard to say for us non-French speakers.
Yeah, spell it for me. I'm sorry, but I always correct the transcripts. I want to make sure that people get the names right. So spell it for me.
He goes by Lol, Lole.
Uh-huh.
But his real name is Laurent Thirion, like Laurent. But you don't say, poor French half the letters don't get pronounced. And then Tyrion, like Tyrion Lannister, but it's Thirion. But anyway, he had a studio in his house, and I brought my music with me, and like, okay, who's this crazy American person? Well, she's, Americans are kind of far and few between over there. And then I just started playing my songs for him, and he put them in his, he fed them from my GarageBand into his Pro Tools, and started really getting into them. And he's like, these are good. And I'm like, I know. So anyway,
confidence.
He got it. He was on board, and then so he'd start to kind of play, like he plays keys and like clav, and he's he has like one of those Nord keyboards, but it has all the things you can get a good B3 sound, and he's just awesome. And he got into it, and like I would have kind of crazy ideas, and he'd go, but then I'm like, everything's possible. Everything is possible. There it was.
Yeah.
And it was, and I would, I'd push him a little bit, and then it would work. And
is this some of your collaboration with RiFFiNDoTs, or was this? Did you have another name that you were doing this under?
A lot of my music is released under my name, but since I just, my kids are older, I just want to get Pejic out of, I want to safely perform under a name, RiFFiNDoTs. It's to protect the innocent. It's the idea.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so, but yes, I released one album as Britta, but I think I'm going to re-release it this year just because under RiFFiNDoTs. So it'll all just kind of be in one catalog.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an album that came out in 2020, and that was called Latitude Berra, which is Basque for same latitude. When I moved over to Hyundai, it was 43 degrees west of Portland, Maine, which is also 43 degrees. So it was kind of an interesting,
Yeah.
Basque.
So are you still collaborating with him?
Yeah,
Long distance. You told me a little bit about this.
Yeah, in fact, it was wonderful because there's a drummer he's played on a few of my tracks. His name is Jon Ervidi. Wonderful guy. Incredibly talented. But one morning I woke up, I was like, oh, can we get Jon to play on some tracks? Like, yeah. And then one morning or night before, he's like, yeah, we'll be playing. And like, I was barely awake and there was a guy playing drums to my songs 3,000 miles away. It was like,
so great.
Like I was in my pajamas pretty much, and I just was checking in with them, and it was sounding great. It was like, oh my gosh, somebody.
In many ways, it's a great way. It's a great time to be alive.
Yeah.
That you're able to do these things.
Yeah.
Us having this conversation right now is a miracle of science to me.
Yeah.
So do you consider your band RiFFiNDoTs is you? This is your moniker. It's all your songs, and I'm sure. Do you do covers at all?
I do a couple covers. I do some French covers too. And I just learned an Italian song. I don't speak Italian, but I sing Paint It Black in French. I used to do These Boots Are Made for Walking in French. And I just know a number of fun crowd pleasers in French. And then I do...
Okay, I got to ask you about this Paint It Black, because did you use any sitar, anything sitar-y in there?
I only play it on my acoustic live. There's no recorded version, but you just gave me an idea. Peut-être c'est une bonne idée.
Yes. Do you hear her? I mean, she speaks, how many languages do you speak now?
Well, French is the one that is the go-to, but I studied Basque, and I just started Italian yesterday, so...
Will you say something for me in French? Because I don't know how to speak it, and I love it. My dad knew how to speak a little French. I want you to say, long live the Lipstick Pickup podcast in French.
Vivre le podcast de Lipstick Pickup.
I love it. It sounds like a mantra. That's so killer. Okay, so I have so many things I want to talk to you about. I told Britta that I'm going to have her back on for a lot of questions, but I love where this is going because this is interesting stuff. I want to know how you ended up back in Boston. How did you decide to wrap up things in Basque and get back in Basque country and get back to Boston?
I think I was feeling homesick, and so there's a school here that was a good match for the kids, and that's why we're here. Otherwise, I'd be back up in Maine. I love Maine. That's where most of my friends are. I've had some good luck meeting some musicians in the area, and that's ongoing. So, I mean, I like it here. It's very comfortable. It's where I was born, and I have some family down here too, some cousins and an aunt. So, yeah, and it's just, I feel like part of civilization, Hyundai is a beautiful town, but it's a resort beach town. Like 9 months out of the year, it's barren. So it's nice to be back where there's a lot of activity. Not quite in the heart of the city, but just outside. And my daughter can take the bus. She tells me after the fact she took the T to go to town with friends. But yeah, I mean, we feel connected here. And I'm also close to my folks too.
Great experience for them to be able to live abroad and do that. Those are the best. My father thought that being well-rounded was the key to life. It was the most important thing that you could do, be well-rounded. I don't even know if people use that expression anymore, but
I think so. Oh yeah, of course. But well-rounded and well-adjusted. That's important too.
Okay, we're moving. The adjustment thing.
We're moving, whether you like it or not.
I got to get to Portland. My father took us to Maine. I've been to Bar Harbor, and I took the ferry over to Halifax or
Oh my
North
gosh, you did that.
Newfoundland or so. It
Oh,
was all about the birds, in our
okay.
family. Our
Okay.
vacations were
Yes,
all about
yes.
birds. He loved cities. He
Yeah,
loved city life, and that's why he loved Boston because it's a place, it's a city.
yeah,
And it's one of America's oldest, and
yeah,
there's
yeah.
some great music there, and you can't oversimplify it either. Boston. I mean, you've got Mike Gent there, you've got uh, Peter Wolf. I mean, it's like, I mean,
Smith.
I
Let's see who else is the Boston. Yeah, Peter Wolf. Peter
but
Wolf.
the names go on and on. Have you read that book on Van Morrison and his time in Boston?
No, but you're the second person to bring this up in the last week and a half. That's
It blew
interesting.
my mind. I
Yeah.
learned so much about Boston in that book, and I would love to. You're probably the only one I'd want to do a book club with, Britta. Let's add that to our book club. I'm a lone wolf kind of loner type of person. It's like I'm very social, but I like to do things on my own. This whole book club thing. But if I could ever do a book club, I would do a book club with you on that book. It was blew my mind. I was like,
Okay.
Boston. No, I've been dying to get back up there.
Book
It's
title? Book title again?
I can't remember. I'll get it to you. It's about the making of, is it Moon Dance? What is his iconic one that's such a masterpiece to so
Brown Eyed
many
Girl?
people? The psychedelic one.
Not Brown Eyed Girl.
No, the
Astro Weeks
it's something
album?
about he either record Astral Weeks. It's about the making of Astral Weeks and the time that he spent in Boston. And I'm like,
Oh, it's recorded
wait a
here?
second, Van Morrison. No, maybe he composed it there. I'm sorry. When the book came out, I consumed it like in a weekend. I was like, just
Ah,
reading it like intensely. And so forgive me, I can't remember all the details, but it is a genius of. It's an interesting book because there's a lot of things you didn't know in there, and it's a reminder of what a rich musical city Boston is. We've got Jonathan Richman.
yep, 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 yep.
There's so many people from Boston. Any old city in the Northeast has got an interesting
Yeah.
musical
My
heritage.
folks used to go see concerts over on the Green in Harvard Square, and they saw Captain Beefheart, and they saw like really, really cool big names. It just sadly, Harvard Square doesn't have the cachet it used to. With Club 47, it's kind of touristy. It's
Yeah,
Harvard. It's Gap, the Gap. You know, everything's getting priced out. Everybody got moved out, so
yeah.
it doesn't have that old feel to it. But
I know there's always interesting things going on. Sorry, I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole. Okay, so I told you I wanted to try to keep this under an hour, and we might go over because this is good stuff. We found out about you and where you've lived, where you were born, and now you're living in Boston, and you are cranking out some really great music. And we've gotten into it a little bit. I spent the morning listening to it, what you have on Spotify. And I love it. We love all the same music, man.
cool.
It's
Yes,
killer.
yes. I think I make music for people who love music because I love, obviously there's a lot of source material. People
It's
pick
love
up. Wait a
letters. I
second.
call them love letters.
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
And we
yes.
love the same things. And your lyrics are really, I've really come to hate the word sassy when people use that word to describe women who are intelligent. People would call my mom sassy, and I'm like, my dad never called my mom sassy. He
Oh,
called her Virginia. But because they're really smart, and they're
yeah,
sardonic is a great word to
yeah.
say, and they're really great. And we're going to talk about that in ensuing episodes. Um, but you asked me a little bit about bird watching. I'm gonna try to contain myself for the next 5 minutes. You can ask me about this bird watching book. You were curious about my dad's bird watching, and I told you that I'm gonna send you a copy because he
Yeah.
broke the birding record. It's a very meaningful American ABA, which is the American Birding Association, has a challenge called the Big Year. It is now a big thing, and people try to do it. There's women have done it, and all these people. There's a movie about it with Steve
Yeah, I
Martin
saw
in
the
it
movie.
and Jack.
That's
Yeah,
great. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my father was one of the pioneers of this challenge. He didn't invent it, But in many ways, he put it on the map in 1979. And for the audio listener, I'm holding up a copy of the book that I'm going to send to Britta, or I might just buy a copy and then drop ship it to her. I've been finding used copies of this book, which was published by St. Martin's Press. It was written by my father, and it is a birding memoir, which is now its own genre. If you go to a bookstore, there's birding memoirs everywhere. And there were
Amazing.
only a handful in
Started a genre.
1980.
That's great.
There were only a handful in 1980, and one one of them was my father's, and he had just written about his experience in the record-breaking attempt to cite 700 species of North American birds within 1 year. And you asked me about it. So ask me any more questions, and I'm going to try to keep it.
Say his name. First of all, say what your father's name was.
My dad's name his legal name was Jim Money, Money, Vardaman. That is my name is Emily. My maiden name is Emily Money Vardaman, Money. Vardaman, V is in Victor, Ardaman, and he's my dad, and he wrote this book, and he also wrote a book. I was telling Britta off camera that my dad had a meaningful history in sustainable tree farm management, and he worked for Masonite down in Laurel. And I appreciate you listening to me, by the way, because I'm trying to let a little bit of my story into the podcast. But I appreciate you being interested in that. But yeah, that's his name.
Fantastic. How does how does the big year work? Like, you record the birds you see. Like, what's the first? Are people gonna look for certain birds like right off the first of the year?
It's a challenge that's evolved over the years, and I think you would find it interesting. You might never become a real serious bird watcher, but you told me that you're enjoying watching a bald eagle off your porch, and
I wish he was there or she, but yes,
it's something to watch. It's mindful. It's watching. But you're brainy enough to appreciate what they did here. If you go to Wikipedia and Google the Big Year Challenge and its history, it was the original bird watching guy, Roger Torrey Peterson, who is the godfather of American bird watching. He wrote the blurb on the back of my father's book, 1980.
Okay.
He is one of the first people to do a birding memoir, and I think it was called Wild America, and I think that there was a PBS show that went along with it, and they got in the car with binoculars and all their ornithological, armament, and they wanted to see how many birds they could see in a year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then a couple of guys come in to do it, and they're students, and they're taking a year off of college, to do this. Well, in 79, my dad comes in, and he is pushing 60, and he's got 7 children and a successful business, and he says, I want to do the big year, but I can't do it like all these other guys. I can't take off. So I'm going to get these guys to help me. Some of these guys that are in these pictures. And I'm holding up for Britta and for anybody looking at the corresponding video, there's young people, and he has got a strategy council, and some of these guys had already broken the record, and then they helped him break the record.
Wow.
You see the spirit in this competitive sport?
Helping each other out. I mean, it seems...
And the name of the book is called Collect, Ask for Birdman, because my father was born in 1921, and I think that he considered a touch-tone telephone to be something special. Just like your father, he helped build broadcasting. He knows that these things were once brand new, but they helped him. And so that's why in the Big Year Challenge, there's been a lot of interesting people who've done it. The book that went to the movie that you saw, The Big Year, those are a bunch of guys who were going for the same record. My dad did it in a different way, and I'm very proud of him.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He did it in his own way, and you'll love this, he was ridiculed by a lot of people in the snobbish bird-watching community for doing it that way. Oh, he's not a serious bird watcher. He's a businessman. he needs the help of these people. And there's lots of stories, Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, of people quoted. That's not serious bird watching. But he was a pioneer because now if you want to bird watch, you go to your app. And it's eBirds or it's the Marvin, and it's crowdsourcing, which is what modern bird watching is all about, crowdsourcing. Who was the crowdsourcer?
Who was the pioneer? Wow.
My
Wow.
dad.
That's fantastic. That's really good.
You're going to love this book because you're a traveler and you're in a curious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And this book is about the people who helped him.
Yeah.
He does this whole thing where I want to know how everybody's name is spelled and I want to give credit to everybody. It's the whole book is. He wants to tell you every amateur who helped him, every pro that helped him, everybody who cooked a dinner for him, everybody who raised a glass, gave him a ride. And I love that about my father, recognition, which is what the podcast is all about.
Yeah. Great. You're carrying the baton.
Have I got you into...
That's great.
Yes. I went over, but I appreciate your interest in it. And we can talk about it again after you get the book. We'll have a book club.
I will. We'll have a book club. We'll read that and the Van Morrison book. You'll tell me what it's called. Wonderful.
Okay, right now, this is supposed to be a Gear Talk podcast. I don't want to lie to the Gear Talk people. You're cool as hell. Your music is great. You've got an interesting and fascinating life, and you also have some cool bitchin' guitars. So let's break it out.
What do you want to see first?
The Rickenbacker. Let's start with your anywhere you want. You're in charge. Talk to me.
So another guitar that smells wonderful. This one smells like ginger snaps. Exactly smells like ginger snap cookies. And so I called this Ginger. And I got this in Austin in 1996. And I brought this with me to France. Oh my gosh. And this had a hard time keeping it in tune until I found out what you're supposed to do. Or not supposed to do, but what can be done to remedy. And that is to put pencil. You take a pencil and you rub a little graphite into the grooves. Whether this works or not, I don't know. It's a Dumbo feather. But so far, so good. I've tried it. But when I record with this guitar over in France with Lowell, every time he'd say, check the tuning, because it would go out of tune. And so every time it goes out of tune, I think of that and say that to myself. So this is Ginger. And I'm playing through.
Did you pine for a Rickenbacker before you got one?
Yes,
I know that.
I did. I had dreams about them. And, a little known guitar player, not to bring up the Who again, had them all over the place.
All things lead to Pete Townshend. Is he the reason why you had to have the Rickenbacker?
Oh, sure. Yes. I'm going to just say it. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's Ginger. And then I don't have this one, but this is Reuben.
Play a little bit for me. I want to hear the jangle. Yeah. You're a great guitar player, and this isn't a hi-fi operation, but let's get some field recordings. I can feel it. I can feel we're having a Townshend seance. He's alive and well, of course, but, we're having a Tommy seance.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God, that movie, I could act it out, the whole thing. Beginning to end right now for you if you want.
It was a kick I saw it in the theater, and my parents sent me with my older brothers and sisters, and I was probably way too young to have seen it in the theater, but it was a kick to the head.
Yeah, I'd watch it like anybody who came through the door. I had a cassette. It was record off of HBO or something, and we didn't have HBO because my dad didn't want HBO. It was the competitor. It was competing with the network.
Same. I mean, my dad didn't want to pay for it, but
exactly. Basically, that's it. So somebody recorded it for us, and anybody who came through the door, I was 10 years old, anybody who came through the door, I'd show it to them. My folks would be like, Britta, maybe you shouldn't be showing that movie to everybody who comes to the door. Why?
It's far out. It's far out. You see that as a young person, and you're not a
You can't
conventional
unsee that
person. You
bell.
can't unsee it. The
No.
imagery, everything about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and just Ken Russell's great. I really like Ken Russell, anyways. So this is a Rickenbacker Hamburg. I think it's called Hamburg. I thought I was an El Dorado, but it's not.
Hold it up a little bit more for the audio listener. It looks, if you, as the crow flies, if you were to look at it from a distance, you'd go, that's a telly. It kind of looks like a Telecaster, but it's a Rickenbacker, and she's doing it down, and then it's got the very emblematic headstock on it with the Rickenbacker logo on it. But it is, remind me what it's called again?
I think it's called a Hamburg, and I think it's from 86 or
Hamburg.
85. I looked up they call that, what number is that called? The serial number, not the VIN number. That's different. That's for wine. Just kidding. But yeah, this sounds very similar to the red one. It has the same twang and same bark, which this one doesn't have a smell though. This one just smells like a factory. But yeah, and then I just had this reset up. So I've done some recording with this a long time ago. I actually got electrocuted with it once. I was recording next to a power strip, and I didn't have folks cut your strings. If you change your strings, cut them, because it slid behind a plug into the power strip. Boom! Just got a spark lit off. So that's what I think of when I think of this guitar.
You went electric.
I did.
Did it smell weird?
No, not as weird as when one of my dogs pissed on a floor outlet. That smelled weird. That smelled like 1920s knob and tube.
Play it for me. Let our listeners hear what it sounds like.
Give me a second.
I love it. It's a royal blue.
No.
They haven't. What is that? What it is? Is it blue? Am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I'm just gonna turn it off so we don't have that horrible sound, and then I'll go back. What do I play?
Well, you're a Richard Thompson fan, and he has so many interesting guitars, Richard Thompson.
I've only seen him just play. Well, I mean, no, he played a Fender. He was doing some interesting stuff with a Fender, whatever, high-end Fender. I need to do the...
Yeah, do it.
No, the other one. So that's got a little growl to it as well.
I love that expression, growl.
Those aren't my only Rickenbackers. I'm a little bit...
Are you a Rickenbacker girl?
A little bit. I just was down in Austin this fall, and they have a really beautiful guitar store called... It's almost like the Norman's guitar. Have you seen that documentary yet about Norman's guitar?
No, but it's in my to-do list. I've learned a lot from Norm's.
Yeah.
By the way, all their videos and their YouTube things. I love their staff there. I can't wait to watch that. I want to know the name of this guitar shop, because I want to go to Austin soon.
Yeah.
And so I want to be sure and hit it. Do you remember the name of the guitar shop?
Austin Vintage Guitars. They were very nice.
Oh,
very, very
excellent.
nice. And they have everything they have that.
Okay.
And weird Rickenbackers. Weirder than this one. Like a guitar that looked like the bass-shaped Rickenbacker. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Just a bit of a guitar. It was weird. Like a regular guitar, not big. So anyway, I went to Austin Vintage. This is getting a little bit crazy here. And I picked this guitar up. I didn't buy it when I was there, but I called them over the phone. I said, "Is it still there?" I said, "Yes."
Oh, yes.
So this one is
I love these fate stories, It feels like fate.
Yeah,
Oh, I love the color.
It's nice. It's sweet. It's like almost the color of my dog, but it doesn't have a great smell to it though. This one, it smells a little more factory. So anyway, this it's got the Ricka sound. I haven't mastered this yet, and if if anybody can call in right now and give me some advice about Ricka sound. I'm totally sounding like a dilettante here, but
What is a Ricka sound? Explain what it is to me, and then maybe I can help.
Sorry, you got two jacks. One is mono, and the other one is standard, and they're Ricka sound. And theoretically, you could plug them into two different amps, and that's when it sounds like a 12-string. But I think I need this little box to split the signal, because I tried it, and I don't know, I'm probably an idiot, but
This is the kind of thing that I love my community for, because we really can't call in the angels, okay, who knows about this, because somebody will know.
yeah.
So tell me why you had to have this one, besides the fact that
So the playability.
it's gorgeous and emblematic too.
The neck, it just plays so nice, and what's very interesting too is like, see it so much on like the frets. You can't feel them. You know, you just go smoothly into, you know, like they're almost not filed down, but like part of the binding of the neck. Probably is word for it. There's probably words for this, but it's smooth. And so this, you know, they all pretty much sound similar to each other, but up in here. Oh yeah, let me plug this one in if you want to hear this one. But yeah, this just the playability, and it sounds great, and it does.
What are other Rickenbacker users that have influenced you? The Pete Townsend influence is obvious and the, you know, iconic. Are there other people who played this guitar that is also a Sparkberg for you?
The Birds, but he was more of a 12-string kind of guy.
Yeah.
Roger McGuinn, he had 12. But, you know, they kind of came out like in the 80s, like did the Smithereens, they used
Yeah, Pat D'Annunzio, you know, had a jangle associated with a jangly side of pop. I believe you're right about that.
the Bangles. Susanna
Yeah.
Hoff used Ricks, and
I met Vicky Peterson.
oh really?
Yes, I met her twice up in New York. We knew people in common, and that's one of her signature guitars, Rickenbacker.
Yes. Oh yeah. So
Yeah. You know, the Bangles, what a great group, jangly, but they were known for having the appropriate gear. You know, those ladies had the appropriate gear for the sound that they were going for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they also used they reintroduced the mellotron, I think, in one of their songs, "In Your Room," I remember. And, you know, they were like kind of trying to sound like the end of Kashmir by Zeppelin. Anyway, so you want to hear a little bark? This one?
Yes, ma'am.
I brought I brought the red one to an open mic, and it's terrifying to know that there are Berkeley students all over this city. And he said, "Hey, can I try that?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And he did. And I was like, why do I have this guitar? I have my own style of playing, but this was like real musician kind of style playing. Like, oh, you've been studying, huh? So anyway, I am a hack, but I also just love playing and love guitars. So I think that outweighs the hack.
I love everything that I've heard. I'm interested to know your thoughts on the Berklee College of Music. It's another institution that people sometimes throw rocks at. I know some people sometimes attend it for a while but don't graduate, which is fine too. And you've done some continued learning there?
Yeah, I did. I just did some marketing, and I still work with one of the instructors there. His name is Chandler Coyle. Hi, Chandler. And his brother Jay is used to manage the Figs, so weird connection there.
Oh yes, I know Jay Coyle. He lives here in Nashville.
Kidding. So all right.
He lives in Franklin.
So his brother, I talk to him regularly. That's
Coyle, Coyle.
Yeah.
A more small world. You and that's crazy.
But I went to a Berklee on-site conference a couple years ago, and what really I loved was I went to a workshop with Susan Rogers, and she was Prince's sound engineer, and she's also a PhD from McGill University in Montreal in acoustic brain and what music does to the brain, and she wrote a really great book, which I loved, called "This Is What It Sounds Like When Doves Fly." But it's like what the brain is doing, what's lighting up, why certain people like timbre, why certain people like lyrics, why certain people like melody, what lands in the brain. And you know, she also did this. Speaking of smelling instruments, there was a test of a bunch of violinists to tell the difference between sound. So they put them in a dark room and they played their instrument, but they also had to put some smell on oil, or because they could smell the instruments. No, that's not the same instrument. So they could tell the instruments apart by how they smelled. And so they had to mask that smell.
This is fascinating stuff. I have no musical instruction and I've never played it, but I'm trying to stay measured and even-handed about all of these things that people like to throw rocks at. And I live in an industry town like Nashville, you know, and sometimes these people leave Berklee and they come down here and people go, they're from Berklee. And we've got a music school right down the road from me called Belmont. It's sort of the Brigham Young of the music.
I had a question about Belmont, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so old Bo, by the way, who'd studied at Berkeley. I've
Hmm.
met a lot of fine people who've studied at Berkeley, and they're doing academic things, and I think it's great. I've learned a lot of interesting things on their, just on their social media.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
instructors there, and I've been doing a deep dive on Al Cooper, and that's why he lives in Boston. Did you know that Al Cooper?
I did not know that he was in
He
Boston.
lives in Boston. He lives in Somerville. He used to live in Atlanta, and I've been doing a deep dive on him, and I went, "Where's Al Cooper now?" Because I've seen him here in Nashville. I've never met him, but I've seen him at a distance, and I'm like, "Where is Al Cooper now?" And Al Cooper lives in Somerville. He went up there to teach at Berkeley.
Oh, be damned. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
He's not still teaching at Berkeley.
No, I don't think so. But he's still there, and he's got an interesting podcast too, where I think he's doing it with a person. Somebody calls him, and he answers the questions. He was so influential in horns and keyboards and organs, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to have somebody like that teaching at Berkeley in the past, it's like. I guess I'm down here in Nashville going, leave Berkeley alone. If people can go
Yeah.
there, they're learning some great stuff because
That's funny.
you and I've been talking about this
Yeah.
thing you can't touch or feel, how it makes you feel.
Right.
These are concerted things about listening to music, and I think that they're probably doing fine work there.
Yeah.
And like I love the guitarist Saint Vincent. She came
Yeah.
from
Yeah, yeah.
Berkeley. She didn't graduate,
Yeah.
but she went there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she knows her stuff. She has a lot of interesting history with some Silvertone and Dan Letcher. I don't know if you know that.
Interesting. I did
I
not.
got some cool stuff. You and I are fast friends, and we're going to come back like over and over. We're going to be. You told me that you had that we're doing a podcast for a while that sounded really interesting. Tell me real quickly what you were doing because I thought it sounded fascinating.
So, a fan, one of my 5 fans in the whole world, started playing my music on Instagram. He's in Jakarta, and he is just like a music encyclopedia. And we'd communicate from time to time, and like it was so and so's birthday. It was so and so's birthday. It was like he'd always like do a special dedication of so and so somebody's birthday. And we got to talking, and I said, well, let's do a podcast and let's interview bands. And we did one, and we interviewed a band called The Wizard from San Antonio. And using my teacher hat, I thought, okay, at the end, let's do like this sobriety test, this rock and roll sobriety test. And so we'd ask, it's on Substack. That one broadcast is on Substack.
Yeah,
And
groovy.
I asked, I do this in my foreign language classes. I asked 10 questions. There were these ones were music related. And then at the end, they had to say the answers in the order in which the questions were asked. So you can't say the answer out loud. You can't write it down. You have to store it. So it's a memory game. It really is. And this is something I saw on a French, when I lived in Paris years ago. I lived in Paris in 2000 and then lived in Basque Country years later. And the game was called Hamburger Quiz. And it was just like a pop culture quiz. But then at the end, they would do the burger de la mort, the burger of death. And that's what this game was. And so anyway, we did it once, but we did this on the podcast, and it was really fun. It was cool, and we tried to line it up to do another one, and maybe we'll get back to it. But it was just like time zone. We were looking at 3 different time zones, like me in Boston, the Wizard in Texas, and his name is Ñoño in Jakarta, and he was
It's a lot of work to just time zones,
Well,
and you're
yeah.
busy too. We planned this one well in advance. Our
Yeah.
chat,
Yeah. So we'll get back to
So
it.
I hope you'll get back to that because that sounds really cool, and I hope you'll come back over and over again.
You know where
because
to find me.
we haven't even really gotten into your music, and I really want to have a listening party about how cool I think this stuff is. But today, I told you I wanted to try to stick it, and it's an hour and 20 minutes. It's hard when we have so much cool stuff to talk about.
I know.
You were about to ask me a question about something, and you said you wanted to ask a question.
Oh yeah, Belmont University. So is that
Yeah.
like a big music school, or is it a university?
I would love the chance to tell you what my opinion is about this.
Mm-hmm.
We bought our house 20 years ago, and it was a small parochial school with maybe 12 or 1,500 students, maybe. I may be wrong about this. And our house is right down the street from it, okay? They have a notable music program there that that they've got a music business program there. You know, some of those people who go to Berkeley, they're studying the music business, and it is a business, you know. They're learning things, and they have a great library there. I told you that I've had an audio engineer stay here at my house, and he was using the library resources there. It is a private Christian affiliated school that has blown up in its campus size. They've gobbled up some of the most expensive real estate in Nashville around it, and they have turned it into, it's no longer Belmont College anymore, it's Belmont University.
Wow.
And it's very expensive. I think it's expensive because I went to a state school, okay? But, you know, people go there, they start there, they don't finish there. I've met more, it's kind of like Berkeley in a lot of ways, because I've met more people that went to school there for a while and didn't finish it. Yeah. And I'm sure they got varying degrees of stuff from it, you know? I mean, you know, it is a music school.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm rambling, but you can study history and law and all kinds of stuff. So any more questions about...
Because I know that I was on a big Flo and Eddie kick last year, and Mark Bowman used to teach there. He taught
Yes.
And that's, like, he taught what not to do, because I think he got stiffed when he was with the Turtles, and there was a whole video of, like, all the managers they owed money to, and I could not, like, oh my God, it would have been so cool to be in a class with him, and I would have, like, quoted Billy the Mountain, I'm sure. Royalties, you know. I'm sure that was...
He's here. I know I've met him before, Volman and his wife. So, you know, we have a lot of those people here in Nashville, and they can be, you know, lecturing there at Belmont, and this is stuff to learn. The business side. The music business is a tough business, and to quote some of my friends, it's always been tough.
Yeah.
There's never enough money for everybody. So.
We're only in it for the money. Well, that's not true anymore. That's not true. It's a
have you ever been to Nashville? Now I'm ready to get you to come here. I want to show you around since you're...
I will come down, though. That sounds great. I would love to. I want to get in... I want to get...
Oh, I'd love to take you around. I have a spare bedroom. I told you that I have put the figs up before. I put PJs up here just a couple of winters ago, and you are welcome to this.
That's great.
Come and see me. I would love to. I'm right at Belmont.
Oh, fantastic.
And I would love to show you Music City, because it is Music City.
Yeah.
I have some measured responses about some of the things that go on here, but it is Music City, and there's some killer guitar shops here.
God, I'm going to get...
You and me could go guitar shopping.
Well, that's a wonderful, wonderful invite. And same goes for you. If you ever want to come up to Boston, you know
I'm going to do it, and I want to do it quickly because it's a summertime place, and I miss these places my dad showed me, like Martha's Vineyard. And what I'd really love to do is take the car up there and drive around. You know, I've always flown in when I've gone, but I'd like to get in the car and drive out to Providence and Newport and all of these places that are important in Fig's history.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's interesting guitar shops.
In Boston, I think there used to be...
Or there were.
More, but, you know, there's a couple. You know, I found a few, but I think I remember I went Rickenbacker shopping in a snowstorm, and there was one, it was a bright green one. I thought it was great, but I really wanted the red, but the red didn't come till later. Anyway... Not to bring up Rickenbackers.
Is that your guitar? Really, Rickenbacker is your thing?
I like playing them. I've gotten used to. You know, people don't like them usually because it's kind of sticky and you know, flat. But I really like it. I've gotten used to it. So
I love it because it's a personal issue. And one thing I love about my experience in this podcast is I don't play, so I don't have any skin in the game. I like some people go, I hate Rickenbackers, and some people love them. They're very meaningful to them, and it's something. The stuff that you're explaining to me, the way it touch and the feel, and you know, this is the academic, really brainy side of music, is that you can't dismiss why Britta loves Rickenbackers. Britta knows what she wants, and Britta wants a Rickenbacker. And I think the thing that most excites me about you coming to Nashville is that I can show you my guitar museum.
So, I mean, they're so beautifully displayed. Look at that. And are you allowed to touch them?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay, good, 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 good.
Okay, we're gonna sign off, but the one thing I'd love to show you because you're a Rickenbacker girl, and they were a Rickenbacker person. Excuse me. They were pioneers in the 12 string, right? Okay, and I'm gonna take my earphones off and grab this real quick.
Okay, okay. I'm still here. I'll play for you. I blew it.
I wish I could play it. All I can do is strum it. Just, it's not even in tune or whatever. The reason why I bought this one is it was the Belzuki, and it is somewhat distantly related to the Rickenbacker because it's a 12 string. And everybody was rushing to market 12 string. From Vox to Rickenbacker because of the popularity of the sound, the jangle, not the 12 string acoustic, but 12 string electric. I don't know if you know this, but this is the first electric 12 string on the market.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. What year is that?
This one is probably a 62 or 63, but they first started selling them in 61. Wow. It's a 12 string. And here's the headstock.
Yeah. Wow. That's
And
fantastic.
it was inexpensive for a vintage guitar, which I consider to have a tremendous legacy. And if you're a Rickenbacker person, I would love to have you strum this and tell me what you think about it. It's very different.
Mm-hmm,
There's something about the way that the strings are strung. You would know the second you pick it up because you know your stuff. But anyway, it was invented by Vinnie Bell and Nat Daniel because of the popularity back to movies and broadcasting. The movie Never on Sunday was a movie that captured the attention, and the song that was the theme song won like an Oscar, and everybody wanted to sound like Grease in 1960, like the country Grease.
Right,
And
right,
so
right.
Nat Daniel and Vinnie Bell said, "Hey, let's make a Belzuki, and it'll be very jangly, and it'll sound like that Greek bouzouki." And that's why they wanted to bring this thing to market. And instead of calling it a bouzouki, they called it a Belzuki. And for the audio listener and also Britta, I'm holding up. You can see the nomenclature, I guess would be the best word.
Fantastic. Wow.
You see, it says Belzuki.
Yeah.
And it's Vinnie Bell and Nate Daniel. And this is. It looks like a solid body, but it's made out of masonite.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, and that's why it's light.
It all comes back to masonite. That's great. Wow.
I would love to put this in your hands because I know you know just what to do with it. We're going to do it.
Okay.
There's plans to be made summertime. I don't know if you fly Southwest, but I always check, and sometimes there's these dirt cheap direct flights from Logan International to Nashville.
Okay.
Come on down here.
All right, and you come up here.
We're going to do
a
it.
Red Sox game. Whoops.
I love Boston. Back to Boston. I mean, I love Boston. I've had a lot of fun times there over the years, and I'm glad to make a new friend there.
Yay! This is great.
A new GF girlfriend.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. I think we could talk forever.
Oh man, couldn't we? I can't wait to have you back. You're going to be a sympathetic string that I'm going to pluck over and over again.
I love it. I love that title.
I wish I'd had more women on this podcast so far. I just want people to know I've had a lot of men on this podcast, and I've tried hard to get women on the podcast, when it's appropriate. I've got a wonderful singer-songwriter here in Nashville, a young lady named Ray Duncan, and her signature guitar is a Dan Electro, and I really love her stuff. She's got a new record. I recorded a podcast with her.
Thank you. And if you get Andy Summers on, can I be your, Ed McMahon?
I like to manifest things. Andy Summers. We're calling out to you. You have two fans that are huge fans. We love Pete Townshend. We also love Andy Summers, right?
Yes.
He's an incredible guitar player.
Yes.
Andy, come visit us, and Britta and Emily have questions for
We have
you.
questions.
And I've seen you on a lot of these podcasts, and I know you talked to Rick Beato, and I know he's very talented, but we're going to have a lot more fun when you come on my show. So we'll see you soon. Andy?
Andy Summers.
Two police fans are gonna tag team you. Okay, I'm gonna say goodbye to you, Britta. I'm gonna stop recording, and then I'm also gonna thank you off camera. This is the Lipstick Pickup Podcast with Emily Money Vardaman Walters, and my guest, Britta. I want you to pronounce your name. I know how to pronounce it, but I want you to pronounce it because it's
I
unusual.
should just say Britta P. RiFFiNDoTs, but it's Britta Pejic.
It's a great name. Pejic. So you record, and I know you're trying to work under RiFFiNDoTs, but the listener can find you under this name too,
Yes.
Britta. Okay, great. Just making sure. All right, I cannot thank you enough. We went 50% overtime, but it was all worth it.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we could go 50 more percent.
Let's just stay here all day.
Thank you
All right,
so much, Emily.
I'm gonna say goodbye, but we're gonna have you on real soon, and I'm gonna see you in person real soon.
Okay, that sounds great.
Hey, Pete Donnelly taught me. I wanted to bring in I brought my electric sitar to New York, and I lent it to him. He's one of my sitars. I lent it to him. He's got an Ekatona sound. If you go up there,
Okay.
But so I have experience with traveling with instruments, and maybe when I go to Boston, I'll travel with my Bell Zuki.
Yeah. Ma'am.
Okay, we're going to say goodbye to the listeners. You stay. I want to say goodbye personally. But
Okay.
thank you, everybody. The Lipstick Pickup Podcast with Emily Walters. Thank you, Britta. If you hear excellent tone and the sound of birds chirping, it means you've made it through an entire episode of the Lipstick Pickup Podcast. You're as free as a bird now, but I hope you'll join me again soon. Comments or questions? I can be reached at emily@thelipstickpickup.com.